Planning the perfect day is never easy, so I'm joined now by Niemierko, the world-renowned wedding planner and event planner, to talk through how to plan your perfect big day. Mark, thank you so much for speaking to me.
Thank you for having me.
So could you perhaps start by telling us a little bit more about you, what you do in your business?
Sure. We plan events and solely weddings mainly, and we look after our clients from every aspect. So the obvious aspects are finding a venue, sourcing the catering if we need to, the waiters and waitresses, and all of the logistical parts, but we also get involved in the creative aspects. So I like to listen to my clients and understand what their tastes and styles are, and then match them with a good florist that gets that particular style. And our main focus is that, you know, her eyelashes look great and her hair's in the perfect condition, and, you know, all he's got to really worry about is the formalities such as his speech and getting the right moves in the first dance, whilst we look after every aspect. And also the leading up, it's very important, you know, whether I'm working with a client for 5, 6 months or even a year, however long I'm working for them, I really want that period, that engagement period, to be as enjoyable as the day as well. So I want them to really look back at the time of planning their wedding fondly with good memories.
What sort of reception and venue trends have you noticed in the last year?
I think people really like things to be slightly easier. They've really focused actually more on their guests. They've realised that to have a good wedding, you've got to keep the guests happy and you've got to make it quite easy for them to get there. Also, is accommodation nearby or accommodation included? So those kind of things, practicalities have really kind of taken over. But also people are really thinking about how they can make their wedding a little bit different. So perhaps it's turning a space, a ballroom, around completely by recarpeting it and redraping it and all sorts, but going to a huge expense in doing that. Or doing something that's a bit more intimate, such as going to one of our favourite restaurants even. And for me, it's really about stages. I think every wedding traditionally has 3 stages, which is ceremony, drinks, reception, and then dinner, dancing. And I kind of like to add a few other kind of stages, if you want to call it that, separately. So, you know, we've even done a separate dessert room focused all around the cake. So you have 2 courses seated at dinner, and then the guests have asked to move into another room for the cutting of the cake, and we've got desserts everywhere, some miniature canapes, an espresso bar with espresso martinis, of course, and other kind of dessert cocktails as well. And then you obviously go back into another room, which is then a nightclub. So it's just adding a bit more fun. And then we've also done after parties as well and all sorts. So I think it's really key to kind of initially start thinking about your wedding day as the day itself, the times and how it will progress and what locations you're going to use for each part.
Do you think in that respect there's a big pressure on a bride to make their wedding different to anyone else's and take it that step further?
Absolutely. I always find that brides tend to be really overwhelmed when they first come to me and they're like, we've got to make this wedding wow. You know, my parents, or there's peer pressure. There's always peer pressure. You know, even sibling rivalry can sometimes take over and think, oh my God, my sister's wedding was amazing. We now need to make this one even more amazing. But I really am there to reassure my couple that really it is about them. You know, for sure I'm going to create a wow event and a wow wedding all around them. But the focus for me is getting to know my couple, and you know, this is about them celebrating their love and marriage. So I think people should come back to that and, you know, don't feel they have to behave like a bridezilla and feel that stereotype, really. They should, you know, a wedding day should really be about bride and groom.
And what about the timings of a wedding day?
Sure.
Do you think that's necessarily changed? Does it move from the morning perhaps to the evening ceremony?
Well, evening ceremonies have become more popular, and I think they work far better. However, that's something I think we might see change slightly. What with the royal wedding that obviously just happened, that might move slightly earlier, because obviously they had they had 11 o'clock. So, you know, traditionally it was around midday in most British kind of households, really early ceremonies. But now that's moved to like 4, 5 o'clock. I've noticed kind of more popular times.
Have you noticed the trend shifting from, say, a country wedding to a city chic wedding?
Sure. I think a couple of years ago it was very much country and people wanted to escape for a long weekend. And now I think it's kind of an equal measure that people are either doing London or or the country, or even both. We've got a wedding next year where the couple have a big association with Oxford, and it means a lot to them. So we're obviously doing a 3-day event in Oxford. For the Thursday night, they're actually doing a dinner at Alain de Casse here at the Dorchester. So they're kind of incorporating that because they've got a lot of international guests. So they're initially coming into London, and then we're kind of ferrying everyone out to Oxford.
Do you think that's a trend coming through from the US, perhaps, making a kind of weekend?
Even a week of it, I think people are really, doing lots more. Even like the hen and the stag events, I've noticed there's not just one, there's at least 2 or even 3 separate events, like an afternoon tea, a weekend away to somewhere like Ibiza or the south of France or somewhere, and then also a kind of nightclub in London as well.
And what about sort of venue and reception trends? Perhaps the difference between a city chic wedding and a country chic wedding. Are there any particular colours or elements that define?
Well, I think a big trend that I've noticed recently is the kind of the 1920s through to the 1940s. People are really looking at that era for inspiration. So we've added lots of little details from one instant way to create that is to hire in champagne saucer glasses, which obviously immediately create that. And then you can also do it through acts. We've recently booked a 40s trio, a ladies trio called the Rockabellas, who sing all different sorts of songs, from Candyman to more modern day songs like Beyonce's Crazy in Love, and so that's really good fun. But yeah, you can have really good fun with that, and add little touches, but that's a huge trend at the moment, I think.
Do you think it's important to be quite careful about being seasonal about the decoration and the food? And
I definitely think seasonal is great. I think, I don't like things looking too artificial anyway, so I think you should choose seasonal produce and also obviously flowers as well. I think it makes sense, really. For me, my clients really, obviously they are spending a lot of money on their wedding day, but it's very, very important to them to not look ostentatious and showy. And I think if you're choosing out-of-season flowers, you're obviously spending a lot of money. So if you're having blossom in August or, in the winter, it just looks a bit artificial, I feel. So, I think it's, particularly flowers, I think it's important to choose them seasonally.
Fantastic. Well, Mark, thank you so much for speaking to me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.